It is clear from the Russia investigation and now from other parts of the FBI, the Justice Department and FBI, that the Justice Department is doing a very bad job vetting, managing, and deciding who should be sources. There is in the real world, no one would expect a husband, Bruce Orr, to be peddling his wife's company's information to his superiors during an election in which she's being paid to help defeat Donald Trump. We all know that's a conflict of interest. The Justice Department didn't see a problem with it. We know it's wrong that if you're fired as a source, that we don't set up a conduit like Christopher Steele did, so that he could keep feeding the FBI who fired him his dirt, albeit his disproven dirt, by going to Bruce Orr. We know we shouldn't hire informants who we have a personal relationship with. We know that's a conflict of interest. That's what the DEA did. We know that government officials shouldn't be functioning both as a government official and a private informant at the same time, but that was going on. There is a significant red flag warning that the Justice Department's management of its sources, people who peddle information to further investigations, is broken. And I think one of the outcomes of the IG report and the Barr report and the Durham report will be tightening up these rules so we don't have people like Bruce Orr.
Every time you sneak something in, I catch it. So just
you
don't think.
Miss a thing, do you?
Okay, so I was first talking about a Durham report or a Durham Barr report or a Barr report, but I agree with you. It'll be a Durham report, and that the information that they are apparently getting in Europe is devastating in terms of how intelligence was outsourced and how Americans were spied on. And it was all part of an effort to first prevent Donald Trump from winning and then to undo a duly elected president. Would you say that would be part of what they find?
I believe that's exactly what they're looking at. What they actually find, we'll have to wait and see. I always like to wait for the facts before I guess. But I will tell you this. Thanks to your show and all the platforms you've given reporters like myself, we've been able to show just how terribly flawed from July 31st, 2016 to April of 2019 when the Mueller investigation concluded, how terribly flawed the FBI's performance, the Justice Department's performance was in targeting the Trump campaign, investigating the Trump campaign, eventually exonerating the Trump campaign for collusion, which never existed. We didn't need 3 years to do it. It was a badly run investigation. I think where Attorney General Barr and John Durham are now focused on is what happened between March and July, from the beginning of the Republican primaries to the time that Pete Strzok opened up an official file. I think there is a growing body of evidence that there may have been, as I'm going to use the Attorney General's own words here now, political surveillance going on in the name of the color of law. And I think that they're beginning to dig into that, and we may hear of some new intelligence agencies or new entities that most Americans have never heard of that laundered some of this information. I think we're going to learn of a sort of an informal spy network that was taking a look at President Trump and his campaign and these Russia collusion allegations before the FBI formally opened up. That will be a huge explosive revelation if that turns out to be true.
Go into more detail on this.
Well, I don't know a lot yet, right? I'm still doing the ground reporting, but we have questions, right? We know that Mifsud, by his own lawyer's account, this is the professor that first met George Papadopoulos, the flashpoint, the starting point of the Russia collusion narrative story, the bogus story that it is now, was directed to meet George Papadopoulos and take this young campaign aide of Donald Trump and bring him in contact with Russians or people posing as Russians, such as a student who pretended she was Putin's niece. We don't know who directed them. Was that the United States government? Was it a private entity? Was it a political entity? So that's one issue that we know Bill Barr is going to get involved in. We know from reporting, and I've confirmed it in my own reporting, that Stefan Halper, another academic, began reaching out to Carter Page in May and June, inviting him to a conference, and then eventually, after the FBI opened up a formal investigation July 31st, he was helping the FBI investigate Carter Page. But we don't know, since there was no FBI file before July 31st, if you believe the current testimony you just played, who was directing them in May, June, and July before that file was opened? Those are the sort of questions that Attorney General Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham are looking at. And there's one common theme to this period of March to July that I call it the calling card, the signature of what was going on. Multiple overtures, almost always by academics, with one offer in mind. We've got dirt on Hillary Clinton. Would you like it? It seemed to be that was the lure. And when you see it happen 4 or 5 times, let's go through all the people that got offered that. You got Papadopoulos. You've got Roger Stone. You've got the Trump Tower meeting. You've got several other people that got these overtures. That has the signature of some form of an intelligence or an operation. A lot of that was going on March, April, May, June. We don't know who directed it, why it happened. That's the sort of stuff that I think Attorney General Barr is going to break open for the American public this fall.
How big will, I know we've talked about now 4 separate reports we're expecting, the IG report on Comey. You believe there'll be an IG report on leaking. Let me put that off to the side for a second. Sure. The FISA report from the IG, the Durham report. But let's go to FISA. That will be first after Comey, correct? We expect.
The leaking could come before it in the sequencing that I've heard. But listen, these things take a life of their own, and somebody gets the report half done, and then there's a conflict with the lawyer, and you got to wait, right? It's unclear, but they're going to be in some form of order. The big one, the one we'll care most about from Michael Horowitz, I believe, is going to be the FISA report, and that looks like that's still several weeks away. Mid-September to early October is the current time frame that I'm hearing from my sources.
Unbelievable. All right. So, and how is it that the FBI, now this was interesting what Andy McCarthy said. He said any counterintelligence operation, well, that would be the president's counterintelligence operation.
That's
so
right.
What he's saying in that is Obama had to not only know, but approve of it, and it's his, and probably been updated on it. Nobody has ever asked him. Yeah,
I remember I think we did a column and talked about this a few months ago, Sean, about one of the two of the people that owe us answers. Hillary Clinton, when did she know what Steele was up to, and when did she know it? And Barack Obama, when did he know, and when did he know it? Let's go back to a famous earlier Russia investigation. You all remember Doug Campbell, the undercover informant for Uranium One. When he was spying on Vladimir Putin's nuclear company as it was trying to get an unfair advantage in the U.S. market, try to corner the American uranium market, he was reporting his stuff to his FBI handlers. And his FBI handlers told him that anything Russia, this sensitive, this counterintelligence-oriented, was briefed directly to President Obama. And he was told of 2 times where he got a congratulations. The president was briefed on this. If President Obama would be briefed on that, of course he would be briefed on the targeting of the Republican nominee of the 2016 election. He's never had to answer that question.
One more question with John Solomon when we get back. 800. All right, as we continue, investigative reporter, also executive vice president and columnist for The Hill, John Solomon is with us. Let me go to this other report that came out this week that Mr. Hillary should win $100 million to zero. Mr. Insurance Policy. There are a bunch of Walmart shopping Trump supporters, smelly ones. Peter Strzok was told that Hillary's email server with top secret classified information on it, clear violation of the law, numerous felonies, that the Chinese were getting all the information on that server in real time, and he didn't care. Why?
That is a wonderful question, and I'm going to refer you to something that a lot of reporters didn't pick up in the note that Chuck Grassley sent out that brought this all to light the other day. There is a little footnote, and if you could skip over it real easy in these long documents, but it says that Grassley is extremely confirmed that there was a highly classified piece of information that the FBI chose not to look at when investigating Hillary Clinton, her server, and the potential compromise of U.S. national secrets. That's the first time we've ever heard that the FBI made a conscious decision not to look at a highly classified piece of evidence. They certainly had clearance to do so. Why would they ignorantly choose not to look at that information? We don't know what the information is, but it isn't an accident that Senator Grassley wrote about it. And what Grassley's letter further indicates is that since January of this year, he's repeatedly asked the Justice Department to answer why did the FBI not look at this, and they don't answer. Silence is their only response.
All of what we're talking about is coming, a lot of it, if not all of it, in the next month. It's going to be explosive. None of this would have happened in large part because if not for John Solomon's real hard, in-depth investigative reporting. You should get the Pulitzer when the New York Times and Washington Post gives theirs back for their fake news Pulitzer prizes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean.